For Bolgatanga Central, Isaac Adongo has rubbished Boulder's advisor's report presented to Bank of Ghana on how Capital Bank went down. The report, which has been widely publicized, details how the actions or inactions of the board and management of the bank resulted in its eventual collapse. But Mr. Adongo has described the report as a piece of shoddy work and has challenged the Bank of Ghana to immediately point out any wrong board chairman of Capital Bank, Dr. Mensah Otabil, did in the disbursement of the funds. The MP is of the view using the funds to set up the sovereign bank is no crime, as the funds were given out as loans, which is an accepted practice within the banking sector. He has been speaking at a forum organized by the Progressive Alliance media communicators in Accra Tuesday on the role of the stakeholders in the banking crisis.
Stole that money themselves must be rendering the biggest apology to the people of Ghana, but misleading all of us as to the true reasons why these banks have collapsed. Set up a bank. If they had used the money to go and open a tobacco manufacturing company, will Bank of Ghana go and collect it? If MC had used the money to go and open a tomato factory, will Dr. Addison and his folks go and collect it? Can you imagine this? And this is the reason they are calling people thieves and animals. So quite clearly, the fact that liquidity support was given to Capital Bank is not criminal. Quite clearly, the fact that the board members, to the extent that you can prove that they were aware of what they are doing and there was underhand gains in the profitable profits, they were engaged in normal business of giving loans from a bank and from sources which just happen to be money from Bank of Ghana they borrowed anyway.
Well, government, I will be bringing more on the forum that was organized at which the Member of Parliament for Bolga spoke. But moving on, government has formally withdrawn motion to dissolve the Ghana Football Association, but says it is not abandoning the criminal prosecution of those implicated in the expose on the country's football by investigative journalist Anas Aremia Anas. Now, the investigative piece by the journalist saw the association's president resigning and set off a chain of events. Deputy Attorney General Godfred Yeboah Dami on Tuesday told the court government has reached an agreement with the World Football Governing Body FIFA on how to reform football administration. There is more in the following report.
Following the screening of the number 12 documentary, which made damning revelations about officials in Ghana football, including FA President Kwesi Nyantakyi, went to the High Court in June to seek an injunction against the association. The injunction, which was successful, restrained all officials of the football governing body from performing their functions. It later appointed a registrar general as the official liquidator. Government subsequently engaged FIFA on the matter, reaching a resolution that a normalization committee would be set up. The decision to abandon the dissolution of the FA is a direct outcome of the Swiss meeting. Justice Samuel Esiedu granted the request and also ordered that all assets belonging to the GFA be returned. The deputy AG told journalists government is satisfied with the outcome.
Well, the investigations are ongoing, and I do not think that we have to push the investigative bodies to arrive at it. They do things in accordance with their procedures and law. And further to that, FIFA and government of Ghana agreed to set up a special task force, as I indicated. It's not just a composition of the normalization committee that we agreed on. The Ghana government, the FIFA and CAF also agreed to set up a joint special task force, and that will have the responsibility of reviewing the disciplinary mechanisms available for football now, and to assess the conduct of all the persons caught in the announced video, to indeed go beyond the announced video and set up proper disciplinary structures for bringing to book persons caught to have engaged in these infractions and all. And where the infractions border on a violation of the domestic laws of Ghana, For example, if a person takes money and is clearly seen to be in a way as to order on the commission of a crime as stealing, fraud, and what have you, that person will be sanctioned in accordance with domestic laws of Ghana.
It's however not clear how soon the normalization committee will be set up to enable football activities to resume.
Second Deputy Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin, who's come under fire for recent remarks he made about some former government officials with disability, has clarified his previous comments. The longest-serving MP, who is also seeking to lead the opposition National Democratic Congress in the 2020 election, stated at a meeting with some chiefs in the Volta region, former President John Mahama shot himself in the foot by appointing persons with disability into his government.
You didn't realize it. I studied governance and leadership up to masters. So I have some of these things at hand. We want to practice them. There were some of these mistakes that cost us dearly. Let me cite another example. In our tradition, if you are not whole, can you be a chief or a queen mother? If you are not whole, can you be a chief or a queen mother?
No.
So when you form a government and make the minister for chieftaincy a blind person, and the chiefs are objecting, and you don't change it, what are you telling the chiefs?
Mr. Bagbin told a news conference here in Accra there was nothing wrong with his remarks except they were not meant for public consumption.
Yes, on my arrival, I started calling all those I felt would have been hurt by the misconstruction of what I said in the Volta region. I've been able to get in touch with some. I personally apologized to them, even though they said after hearing my voice and what I said, they felt I never offended them. I've not been able to reach to all of them because the numbers are not getting through. It's likely that some are not in the country. But I will continue not only to use the telephone, but also to get in personal touch with them and to apologize to them. And to the elders and leaders of my party. I'm doing so because of the importance I attach to our relationships, not because I'm admitting that I've said something wrong. What I did in my speech is to admit that it is not all things that you say in public. That was clear. I apologize for not coming early to clarify the situation. And I gave the reason that I wasn't in the country. I was on an official trip. I also apologize for whatever the misconstruction, misrepresentation, the political might have caused to Ghanaians and to those particular persons. Those are the apologies I rendered. I haven't talked about justifications, no. And so my friend from Joy FM, don't be confused at all.
Well, joining us on phone right now is the Executive Director of the Ghana Blind Union Association, Dr. Obeng Asamoah. Good evening to you, Dr. Obeng Asamoah, and thank you for your time. Now, you've heard what the Second Deputy Speaker has had to say after his initial remarks. What do you make of them?
Thank you and good evening. The Ghana Blind Union, actually the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations, we are still very disappointed in his remarks, and we were expecting that after we had made it clear about what he had said wrong, we were thought that he would have just apologized. What he has said is not an apology. It's very dilute, and he seemed to just be playing with the words. We don't see this as an apology. He still maintains that he's not done anything wrong. But we still maintain that what he said is offensive, it is provocative, and it is quite unnecessary. We don't see why he would refer to a parent to somebody's instability based on a person's disability for a position. We don't think that is right. We don't think it is in congruence with our constitution, and we are very much offended, and we want him to just apologize and retract his statement. If he just withdraw the statement, let's move on. But saying things like he apologized for not clarifying the situation earlier, that is not the crux of the matter. The crux of the matter is that what he said is wrong, and we want him to acknowledge that and move on from there.
Now, Dr. Samoa, he's clearly not intending to do exactly what you're asking him to do. He wants to leave the matter as it is. Do you intend to do anything else about it?
Well, we do not intend to leave the matter as it is. Our leadership will meet, and then we shall look at the issue, and we shall discuss and decide what line of action to take. Don't forget that this is a matter of our rights, and this is a matter of derogatory statements made against us. We are talking about issues of discrimination. We really don't like the situation as it is, and we don't think that we should just keep quiet about it. We feel that our sensibilities have been offended, and we feel that it is our right to speak out against this kind of thing. Because as a leader, we don't think that that kind of statement helps to enlighten and draws up the rest of the country. It rather sets us back on the path that we don't want to be. And so we will definitely not be quiet about it.
All right. Incidentally, there were some people who showed up at this news conference who were persons with disability who said they found nothing wrong with the comments or the initial remarks by the second deputy speaker. Clearly, they don't agree with all that you're saying now.
Well, those persons have their right to go anywhere they want to go. But I can tell you that they are not representative of persons with disability. The leadership of persons with disability, that is the voice of persons with disability. We are all in agreement that what he said is wrong, and we do not agree with any view that he will say that he hasn't done anything wrong. No. So those people who went there do not represent the voice of persons with disability. They do not.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Obeng Samoa. Dr. Obeng Samoa is with the Ghana Federation of the Disabled. Meanwhile, moments after the news conference by the second deputy speaker, former Information Minister Dr. Mani Boama, who was mentioned in the original remarks by Mr. Bagbin, says the second deputy speaker is only trying to lie his way out of a mistake. And that's the tweet as we have it right now. Why can't Honorable Bagbin just realize he cannot lie his way out of his mistake? And that's where he has left it. Now, Nana Dr. Obrey-Abuah is a social scientist. He joins me with another perspective to this continuing story. Thank you for making time to join us, Nana. Now, you've heard the remarks by the news conference by the second deputy speaker.
I've heard it in the news.
All right. So it's essentially he's standing by what he's had to say already. There are those who are saying, oh, let's take it from your perspective. You know a lot about these issues. What has he said that you think is so wrong? Or let's take his remarks about people going to, or chiefs or traditional authorities and the way they see persons with disability. Is that a fact?
Yeah, the fact is that to be eligible for a chief, to be a stool, they look at some of the physical abilities of the incumbent.
You must be whole, essentially. Is that the case?
Yes, hello?
They're saying you must be whole. Is that the case?
You see, for example, traditionally, we used to lead the people. You are an army commander. You are the commander-in-chief of your ASAFO. You must lead them to war. And how can a blind man lead the army to war? You see? So they look at that. If you are disabled in the legs or arms, you don't be an army commander. They look at all these. You can't put a leper on a stool. You see, so these are some of the, apart from being, what is exceptional is stammering. That's why they think you have a difficulty. You see, apart from that, but other disabilities, you don't qualify to be a chief. That is traditional. Unless in the course of being a chief, you become disabled. All of us can be disabled. I even joke that I wear spectacles, so I don't qualify to be on the stool. You see, unless you are handicapped on the stool, then you are not the stool.
All right. So
in some places, even being a train,
all right,
you don't qualify.
So Nana, does from the comments that the second deputy speaker was making, he's essentially saying that former President John Mahama should not have appointed somebody who was blind to interact as chieftaincy minister, who would have to interact with the chiefs. Do you agree with him, or does tradition back or support his?
The fact is that he was not going to be a chief. The Honorable Ghana was not going to be a chief. It's a political appointment, but you should have also thought of it. These people, this is the mentality, this is the world of chieftaincy, and this is the way they look at people with disability. You see, but my point is that they accepted him because he was not going to be a chief. It's a political appointment.
So you don't think it took anything away from his position?
Hello?
You don't think it took anything away from his position as chieftaincy minister?
He had worked at the registry of the House of Chiefs before. He was a researcher, and they never discarded him, or they didn't say they didn't like him because he was disabled. He had worked there. He worked with them. Right. He worked with them. So there was no problem. So that's what that one. But unless he was going to be a chief, then they will disqualify him.
All right. But Nana, there were actual
appointment. Nana, there were worked there. He was a civil servant in the chieftaincy institution, Ministry of Chieftaincy. He was a research officer. So there was nothing wrong.
But Nana, there were complaints from the chiefs that they were not too comfortable with him being chieftaincy minister.
Yeah, but that's what I said. If that's the world, the one who appointed him should also done his research that in the world of chieftaincy, you cannot put a leader who is disabled, because if they are going to, or how would you see them? All right. How would you lead them to do the struggle? You see, so on one side, it was a political appointment. He was not going to be a chief. He's one of them. He was their worker. So some sections will not have any problem. But those who actually want to live by the principles of chieftaincy, once you become a minister, it's like being a general minister, general chief over all others. So I'm thinking on the other side too, the one who is appointed must do his research. We are fighting against, injustices against this, but it's not everywhere where disabled can work.
All right. Thank you.
Can they fight? Can they join the SWAT team to fight armed robbers? You see, it's not everywhere. There are certain places that would be suitable for the disabled. So we should also be circumspect in appointing people to certain places where they are capable.
All right.
But in the world of chieftaincy, from eligibility to leadership and all that, they want actually able-bodied to lead them.
Thank you very much, Nana. Dr. Aubrey Yeboah. He's a social scientist and was reacting to the story which has been in the news for some time now. It has to do with the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament and the remarks he's made about some persons with disability. Now, the Ghana National Association of Small-Scale Miners says government should bear the cost of moving excavators to designated sites as proposed in the roadmap to lift the ban on small-scale mining in the country. The association says after the 18-month drought, members can hardly bear the cost of conveying the excavators or tracking devices to be fixed on them.
On August 16, 2018, the Interministerial Committee outlined government's roadmap towards lifting the ban on illegal mining in the country.
One, we are going to direct that all excavators be brought to designated areas in all the regions, and the regional ministers will make sure that this is done. Withdraw all military and paramilitary forces from the ground, and Operation Vanguard will be the only force that will be the mining concession.
But speaking at a press conference to highlight their position on the roadmap, General Secretary of the Small Scale Miners Association, Godwin Ama, said tracking the excavators is not the solution to the illegal mining menace, adding government should bear the cost of moving the excavators to a central location for the tracking devices to be installed.
Tracking of excavators, to me personally, will not solve the problem, because when those is within the roadmap, like my colleague said, the roadmap says every big excavator should move from the mining area to a location that has been designated by government. Who is going to bear the cost after sitting at home for 18 months? So the alternative that we gave was what? Once the person has been vetted and is working, you can fix those devices there, instead of we sending the excavators to that location, because the cost implication will be very, 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 very distinct for us, because the cost of one excavator to and fro with the low bed, the minimum we are looking at 5,000 cedis. And if the person is having about 2 and 3 and he has not worked for more than 18 months, and you say the person should bear that cost.
According to the General Secretary, members of the association cannot continue to sit idle, but are poised on exposing politicians and traditional leaders involved in the illegal mining business in the country.
Everyone has the capacity to expose, you know. If you watch in the president's address, he says we should be citizens, not spectators. You shouldn't sit on the fence. Anyone, the law is clear. If you want to do mining, get the required licenses, then you operate. So if you're a politician and you go in illegally, it's not because you're a politician, the law will be different from your end. The association will ensure that we expose any politician or any traditional person who operates illegally or supports illegality in the mining space.
They urged government to quicken the process of vetting and verifying licenses to enable them resume work as proposed by the roadmap. Kingsley Otus reports for Joy News.
And we're taking a break here on Joy News Round. We'll be back with the recap of the stories as well as business news. Stay tuned. And we're bringing you business news in a bit, and Emmanuel Abajiafe is standing by. But let's bring you a wrap of the stories of today's big stories. And the very first one of them is Member of Parliament for Bolgatanga Central, Isaac Adongo, has rubbished the Boulders Advisory's report presented to Bank of Ghana on how Capital Bank went down. Speaking at a forum in Accra on Tuesday on the role of stakeholders in the banking crisis, Mr. Adongo has described the report as a piece of shoddy work and has challenged the Bank of Ghana to immediately point out any wrong. Board Chairman of Capital Bank, Dr. Mensah Otabil, did in the disbursement of the funds.
So from today, those who keep going around saying that they gave taxpayers money to Capital Bank and directors stole that money themselves and demanding the biggest apology in the Ghana for misleading all of us.
Now, Second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbing, who's come under fire for recent remarks he made about some former government officials with disability, has clarified his previous comments. Mr. Bagbing told a news conference here in Accra there was nothing wrong with his remarks, except they were not meant for public consumption. Government has formally withdrawn a motion to dissolve the Ghana Football Association, but says it is not abandoning the criminal prosecution of those implicated in the expose on the country's football by Anas Aremeyo Anas. Deputy Attorney General Godfrey Dami Yeboah on Tuesday told the court government has reached an agreement with World Football Governing Body FIFA on how to reform football administration. The Wa High Court has overturned the suspension of the Wa Polytechnic Rector, Professor Emmanuel Owusu Mafo. The Governing Council of the Polytechnic on April 4 this year suspended the rector for allegedly breaching the procurement procedures to acquire a Mercedes-Benz worth over $500,000 Ghana cedis. Head of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, Dr. KK Sapong, has admitted the state oil firm bought $7.5 million worth of real estate from a company he's connected with, but maintains the transaction was above board. Emmanuel Abajuya Faith now here with Business News.
Hello, good evening to you and welcome to Business. Energy think tank Africa Center for Energy Policy says government must closely monitor the petroleum agreement with Norwegian oil company Aker Energy to ensure the nation gets what is due from the contract. The caution follows the decision by Aker to commence oil and gas exploration in Ghana by 2021, having finalized all the relevant agreements to commence operations in the country. Aker had earlier acquired U.S. company Hess Petroleum's stake offshore in the Deepwater Tunnel Cape 3 Points block in the Western region. Ben Boachi is the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy.
Ghana has a contract with Hess, which is locked, which is signed, was signed in 2016, I guess. And that is not going to change. They have sold their interest in the block to Aker. So it's the same fiscal terms, the same contractual conditions that they will have to satisfy, But of course, you are dealing with two different companies, and you just have to insist and ensure that the standards that operates in the sector is what is adhered to by Aker, because that's a new company. What is important to us as a country is for the agencies to monitor whoever is operating in our waters, to respond to our laws and make sure that we can track production and get our share of the resources.
Yes, we know that when it comes to oil and gas, Norway is actually a big name in there. Do you think they'll be bringing something different on board?
I think for an industry watcher, it is always important that you have the capacity to monitor what is happening and not necessarily where the company is coming from, because these are commercial entities. They are in to make money, but it is an advantage to have a company coming from Norway because there are a lot of transparency requirements. You will know how the company perform on the stocks. Everything is published, and more transparent, and that gives advocates and civil society the opportunity to get more data to analyze what the company is reporting in Norway. But ultimately, the Ghana has a responsibility to make sure that it benefits adequately from the exploration and production of oil.
Meanwhile, Deputy Minister for Energy, Joseph Kujo, says significant progress has been made with plans to establish the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation's operational headquarters at Sekondi Takoradi in the Western region. The move forms part of government's plans to create a regional oil hub. Mr. Kujo, who is in Norway as part of the Petroleum Commission's trade mission, explains a well-established oil city would contribute to growth of the country's oil sector.
The way the industry is organized, because the oil and gas industry requires services of a certain standard. And when it comes to schools, for example, the workers in that space, the professionals in that space, would want a certain level of education for their kids. When it comes to health services, the standard is also high. So it becomes economically beneficial for a country to organize the supporting and ancillary services supporting the sector in a small space. That is the essence of getting the city where education for the industry players, that is the kids and the families, and health delivery services, and you create the environment which attract the professionals from the world to stay in your country. If you don't do that, then these facilities get spread. Let's take Takoradi, for example. You would notice an effect where every week people are flying from Accra to and fro, simply because these guys can spend the weekend in Accra, in Takoradi. When it becomes like that, other countries may become more attractive just because, I'm talking about professionals, attracting the professionals into the sector, just because they get stressed accessing services as they work in the oil and gas sector. So it's an imperative for us to develop an oil and gas city. Now it is a name for Takoradi, but it is not in effect when you come to the services you can get in support of the sector.
Away from petroleum now, and founder of finance group SAS and business mogul Togbi Apede has described the recent collapse of some local banks as unfortunate but necessary to restore confidence in the banking sector. The Bank of Ghana closed 7 banks over their failure to comply with some banking regulations. The move has been criticized by some players in the industry, but Togbi Apede is of a different opinion. He tells Joy Business this should rather improve banking in the country as well as protect other local banks.
What is happening in the banking sector is most unfortunate. We of course have to commend Bank of Ghana for trying to ensure sanity in the system, you know, but it's most unfortunate because a lot of this could have been avoided anyway, you know, if the former managers of the bank were as meticulous as the current management is doing, both in the issue of licenses and in the supervision of licensees. A lot of these lapses would not have happened. You know, the human being is rational. When given the opportunity, they'll take it. So while I say, you know, this most unfortunate, again, the opportunity existed through lax regulation, so people took advantage of it. But I'm happy that the current governor and his team are trying their best to restore sanity. It's sad to see many Ghanaian banks go, but of course we have to also look at the other side. In some cases, there were challenges from government's inability to pay contractors who were funded by these banks, you know. But of course, where there are outright wrongdoings, not linked to government indebtedness, to loan takers, those are most regrettable.
I have this question because of where you're coming from as an indigenous person and a strong promoter of the indigenous brand. And for you, do you feel bad that developments like this cast doubt about our quest to grow indigenous firms and let them take up their places in the national space?
Well, of course, that's why I regret this thing has happened, because, I mean, just like we had aspired during the days of General Chiampong, we want to capture the commanding heights of our economy. So it would be nice to see, you know, indigenous banks, you know, capturing their fair share of the banking industry. So honestly, I wish what we've gone through recently hadn't happened. And I think we'll all take a cue from it, we'll all learn from it, both with the professionals wanting to establish banks or who already have banks or financial institutions, and also regulators.
Now, some fiscal policy stakeholders have called for a review of the tax incentive policy as it puts a burden on the nation's economy. The concerns were raised at the high-level dialogue on tax expenditures in Ghana, organized by the Economic Governance Platform here in Accra.
That various players within the economic space to deliberate on the rising effects of tax expenditure on national growth and solutions to the problem. In 2017, tax expenditures alone accounted for 5.2% of the nation's GDP. Speaking on the sidelines of the dialogue, tax expert Abdullah Ali Nachia called for a review of tax policy incentives as they serve as guidelines for the various regulators.
For 2018, for example, and look at the percentage of GDP that is going to certain expenditure line items, like refunds, 0.7%. You take subsidies, 0.1%, and you have a tax expenditure of about 1.98%. So if you had stemmed that revenue loss, you can imagine what you could have done in terms of subsidies to the agri sector, in terms of paying off certain government expenditure. So you can assess the grievousness from looking at the percentage of revenue loss through tax expenditures as against the percentage to GDP of certain expenditure lines. There are a lot of areas to look at because they are scattered in all the laws that we examine today. You have to examine the Income Tax Act. You have to look at the GIPC Act. You have to look at the Free Zones Act. You have to even look at the policy framework of the Ministry of Finance on tax exemptions. And then you will be able to see what to be addressed.
On his part, economist Dr. Eric Oduosan emphasized that the country loses so much revenue through incentive policies.
If we don't review the incentive regime, it is going to affect us. Most importantly, the various mining and minerals agreements that we sign as a country, where we have stability clauses in there, takes all these incentive organizations outside the current legal regime. So it makes it difficult again for us to be able to mobilize it. So I will advocate that if we can pass what we call an Unconscionable Contracts Review Amendment Act, a law that sought to give the government the opportunity to review all such minerals and mining agreements or contracts, that seems to be very unconscionable because it has a stability clause arrangement in there that prevent government from reviewing it so that such incentives can be mobilized to the benefit of Ghanaians to help.
That's all we have for you in business tonight. Many thanks for joining me. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji Wiafi. For more business news, log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Have a good evening.
The Wa High Court has overturned the suspension of the Wa Polytechnic Rector, Professor Emmanuel Owusu-Marfo. The Governing Council of the Polytechnic on April 4 this year suspended the rector for allegedly breaching procurement procedures to acquire a Mercedes-Benz worth over $500,000 Ghana cedis. The professor at a point was captured on video fleeing the campus of the Polytechnic in the Mercedes-Benz because he felt his life was threatened. Professor Marfo prayed the court to quash the decision of the Governing Council and just got that prayer answered. Joy News' Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam sat through court proceedings in our reports.
The rector, Professor Marfo, appeared at the court dressed in black suit and not in the luxurious controversial Benz, but in red Mitsubishi L200. The respondents, led by the chairman of the Governing Council, Professor Daniel Berger, Justice Kwesi Boakye, in reviewing the case, stated that the applicant was not given a hearing before he was suspended and thus has violated the principle of natural justice. He therefore overturned the suspension of the applicant and awarded a cost of 5,000 Ghana cedis against the respondents. Lawyer for the applicant, Alfred Trey Yabua, is happy with the court's ruling.
The judge explained suspension is a punishment, and if you want to suspend a person, at least there must be initial investigation involving that person before you do the suspension. But in this case, he wasn't involved in any form of initial investigations. They just went ahead to levy that punishment. That's why I say that the suspension was not properly conducted or taken up. We came to court and we've been vindicated. So the natural consequence is that my client is happy. I'm also happy for the ruling of the court.
Lawyer for the respondents was not immediately available for comment. Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam.
We have been joined over the telephone line by the council chairman of the Wa Polytechnic, Professor Daniel Berger. Thank you for your time, Prof. Now, we have all heard the ruling of the High Court. They've overturned the suspension of the rector, Professor Emmanuel Owusu-Marfo. How quickly does he get reinstated? Hello, can you hear me, Prof? Hello, Professor Berger. All right, we are having some challenges with the line to the professor there. We're going to, all right, let's try the line one more time. Professor Berger, can you hear me now? Hello, Prof.
Hello.
All right, if you can hear me now, which I believe is the case. Yeah. How quickly can we have Professor Marfo, or can we expect Professor Marfo to be reinstated?
Hello?
We're having some challenges with the line to the professor. We're dropping the interview here. Let's move on to other stories now here on Joy News Prime. A group calling itself Friends of Colleges of Education in the Ashanti region has hit the streets of Kumasi to demonstrate against the teacher licentiate exams. The group claims the exam is a strategy by government to cut down on the employment of teachers. Ashanti region correspondent Beatrice Spiogabra joined the demonstrators. The group sent 2 separate petitions to the Regional Coordinating Council for the Minister and the Regional Education Director. Prince Apia reports.
Clad in red and black, amid singing and dancing, the group moved from the Wesley College through the Swami Roundabout, Bantama, the Kwai Roundabout to the RCC. Calling itself Friends of the Colleges of Education, they sent 2 separate petitions to the Regional Education Directorate and the Regional Coordinating Council for the Regional Minister. It was received on behalf by the NADMO Regional Chair. Spokesperson for the group, Eric Tete, says they are not writing the license exams until the necessary arrangements are done.
Policy is not for us. According to page 11 of that same document stated that after 4-year training, that is when they are made to sit for that paper. We did only 3 years, and it is diploma, it is not degree. And so in an attempt to impose this on us, we are saying it is the way the government is trying to retrieve the allowance, the restored allowance back to the system. They want to add us to the NAPCO program and also increase unemployment in Ghana. We are saying the government should come down and find better ways to resolve this matter with us. We understand a lot of trade unions had a series of consultation with National Teaching Council. They are refusing to accept their views. All of them are raising red flags to that same implementation. They are in haste. And now when you go to their own document again, the date for writing this examination, there is even a mistake with it. Because receipt are also writing. And the issue is that now those who haven't receipt, it means automatically they are disqualified. What is all this mess? UCC is sanitizing the system already. And so we believe this administration is trying to sideline newly trained teachers. And we are saying that if Nana Akufo-Addo doesn't come down, His Excellency, teachers are agents of change and we effect that 2020. If the best know, we are saying that it means rule of law doesn't exist in Ghana. When people have power, they tend to abuse those who are below. We are youth, and we are saying that according to provisions of the Constitution, Article 21 stated that we have right to do this. If they want to exercise the rule of law, they must consider some of these things. They shouldn't feel shy to come to terms with us. Yes, they are leaders, and they cannot always be right. So we are saying that they should come down and review into their own written document they give us. Because number one of their procedure was talking about indexing, where you see NTC will capture our details into their portal. We're not even there. We are out already. And today I say this because we understand some of our names are with the regional whatever Ministry of Education. They won't employ us even with us examination. We are not interested. We won't beg them for job this year. The youth are serious about this matter. That is how it is. When we are seeing some loopholes and we want to address them, quickly they want to sideline us. We don't care. We are fighting for our right, and it's time the youth need to come together. Enough of that.
The petitions are expected to be handed over to the Presidency and the Education Ministry. Prince Apia reporting.
Now, it is becoming increasingly clear the government's decision to support the construction of a national cathedral to be used for national events is not receiving public acclaim, mainly because many are of the opinion it is not a priority. Though government says it is not committing any funds to the project, it is donating the land on which the cathedral will sit and has earmarked prime land adjacent to Parliament House for that purpose. A number of government agencies and officials, including several judges, would, however, first have to be relocated and their properties demolished to make way for the edifice. The cost of renting temporary accommodation as new houses are built for the judges and other affected officials has added to the resistance to the project. So, with the story so far on the National Cathedral, President Akufo-Addo castled for its construction on March 6, 2017. It would house impressive chapels and baptistry, Grand Central Hall, a music school, choir rehearsal, and multi-use spaces, art gallery, and a shop. It will be a 5,000 capacity auditorium. And on March 6, 2018, President Akufo-Addo unveiled the design for the cathedral, which you see there, and it is designed by David Adjaye. So Sir David Adjaye, an astute and internationally acclaimed architect, he designed the structure. President Akufo-Addo inaugurated a 13-member board of trustees on March 16, 2017, to be in charge of the National Cathedral when it is completed. And the Board of Trustees comes from varied backgrounds, but mainly members of the clergy. The land size for the cathedral is 6 hectares. And the structures currently earmarked for demolition to build the cathedral include the Scholarship Secretariat, the Judicial Training Institute, and bungalows of 9 appeals court judges. And all these are in the vicinity of Parliament House. Well, Executive Director of the Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana, Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, is one of those who does not think that the construction of the National Cathedral is a priority. He spoke on Joy FM Super Morning Show on Tuesday.
From the perspective of a church, a cathedral is necessary. But from the perspective of a state, the Republic of Ghana, is it one of our missions? Is it necessary? Or does it just make us feel good? And when you put that in the context of the times, meaning when you look at our condition as a country and the priorities that we have and the resources available for executing the national agenda, it does not appear to me that this adventure that the state wishes to embark upon in collaboration with church is actually a necessary one. The church can prioritize it, but not the state.
Okay.
Right? I mean, so fine. That's their domain. They can prioritize this, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, if they could enter into an arm's length transaction with a private landowner and purchase the land and do this, why not? Of course. I mean, that's their mission, and they are free to do that.
Right.
But it is not priority for the state.
He says the decision by government to allocate the land in the first place is just another example of how much power is vested in the president by the Constitution.
This raises questions, worrying questions for me about how power is actually allocated and distributed and used in this country. That one person can decide that land that is in the public trust can be donated, no matter the value of the land. And this is potentially worth millions of dollars. And then that's it. No legislation about it, no debates. I think that it speaks to just the absence of limits, the absence of real limitations on presidential power. Right? So what if the next president comes and wants to do another land for something else? And this is land that is being donated, essentially, not even being sold. So it appears that the president is the allocator of land, the donor of land, can do anything. And this is not any one president. This is just the nature of our presidency. It's just we need to decongest the power that the president has.
Now, Ghana and the United Kingdom have committed to £20 million investment deal expected to create 15,000 jobs. The project, dubbed Jobs and Economic Transformation Program, will assist government address gaps in the implementation of key industrialization programs. The UK Minister for Africa Affairs, Harriet Baldwin, says the program ties in with President Akufo-Addo's goal of developing the country beyond aid.
Business Council that will really act to steer even more inward investment into Ghana from the UK. And the UK has a unique offer because we're such a meeting point of the world's investors and the world's investment opportunities, and with the City of London and all of the different financial expertise that we have in the UK, there is a lot that we bring to the table. And so we will organise something in October where we'll bring in a lot of really premium UK firms who are looking to increase their investments into Ghana. And then we'll follow that up with something in we hope, December back in the UK. And we'll start a rhythm of every 6 months or so, making sure that we get everyone together to talk about the opportunities, to talk about when there are obstacles, what those are and what can be done about them. And that's really the goal of this council. And I'm informed by the team here, and I think the team here from both the private sector side of things, investment, prosperity, international development, and of course political side, that there is a great pipeline of UK firms who are looking to invest in Ghana. Some of them some really big ticket items like BP, like Liberty, and there are of course many others. So I hope that we can all commit ourselves in this courtesy call this morning to making the most of those potential opportunities to further strengthen the friendship between our countries.
Trade and Industry Minister Alan Kyerematen, who signed on behalf of government, is optimistic more jobs will be created in the infrastructure sector, where bulk of the investment will be channeled to.
This program is doing is it has identified two of the major components of this 10-point transformation agenda, and is supporting Ghana in developing and elaborating on these two pillars of our transformation agenda. First is, as I'm sure you are all aware, Ghana has depended on cocoa and gold for over a century as the two main commodities that have supported our economic development agenda. But as part of our transformation program, we have now identified new strategic growth poles. We're talking about petrochemical industry. We are talking about industrial salt that would lead also to industrial chemicals. We're talking about developing our oil palm industry. We're looking at industrial starch, which is one of the most widely used industrial raw materials. We are looking at developing our automobile and vehicle assembly industry. We're looking at the garment and textile industry. And again, we believe that the focus of this program on identifying 5 of these new strategic growth areas, frankly, as we would say, we can't get it any better, because I believe that the support that we are receiving under this program would help us dive deeply into these new sectors.
President Akufo-Addo, in a separate meeting with the UK Africa Minister, emphasized his resolve to be prudent in the management of the country's resources.
Know about BP's interest in offshore petroleum development, as well as Liberty in the bauxite. There are areas where we are looking also to develop new strategies for developing value for the country in these areas. We've just passed a new law establishing a bauxite authority who will take charge of all the bauxite resources of the country and negotiate with investors appropriately. So it's a significant, and I know I've met them in England. I've met them, I think, twice.
Yeah.
The people, the promoters of Liberty.
Yeah.
And in the same way, too, those of BP, too, found time to come and visit with me.
Yeah.
There are areas of very great significance for us.
Yes.
And we're very interested in working. That's why I'm keen to be part of this business summit that you're talking about.
Excellent.
Now, Joy News parliamentary correspondent Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is part of a panel discussing the future of Africa's food production at the Food Security Conference in Durban, South Africa. The conference by the civil society group BioAfrica is being held in collaboration with South Africa's Ministry of Science and Technology. A while ago, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, who also delivered a presentation on the challenges threatening the continent's food security, shared this with us.
Usually do the trick if you want to address some of these concerns. The challenges that everyday farmers in Africa face vis-a-vis the technology that is being thrown in there. So the issues of climate change, which is negatively impacting farmers. I have done documentaries about farmers, making huge losses as a result of the rains not falling. There are problems with the fall armyworm invasion, which has been a major talking point, which is again a key thing that African farmers are battling with. There are concerns about low productivity. There are concerns about migration from rural areas, and also it resulting in a situation where there are no farm hands in a lot of the rural communities. And there are concerns about the breaking labor that would require on farms, which are not exactly mechanized. I think in dealing with some of these problems and trying to get the message across, we've not done a very good job in relating some of these challenges with agricultural production with the role that biotech can play in helping deal with it. And so the everyday ordinary person in Africa hears about biotechnology and he sees it as a top-up technology, finding it very difficult to associate with. The ordinary farmer hears about it and he fully doesn't understand. So all of these barriers, one way or other, need to be broken, and it starts with adequate education for the ordinary farmer and particularly members of the public, and ensuring that some of these challenges that the farmers face, they get to understand the role that biotechnology can play in helping deal with them. That's probably the way to go going forward. Thank you very much.
Deputy Assistant Secretary of Trade for Trade Policy and Negotiations at the U.S. Government State Department, Peter Hart, who spoke at the conference, said food security is a priority for world leaders.
But before I turn it over to our panel of experts, I wanted to provide a couple of framing remarks. I think the first question you might have is, given this panel of experts, why you have a diplomat who knows very little about agrotechnology and agrobiology moderating the session. And I think it's a fair question. First is obviously the trade aspect of it, that it's an important trade issue, not only for the United States, but for around the world. And I think secondly, and equally as important, is that biotechnology leads to increased food security, which leads to greater peace and stability. And in fact, our Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, has identified food security as one of his key priorities to discuss at the upcoming UN General Assembly.
Now, every 90 days, 500 people are killed on Ghana's roads. Many of these accidents are thought to be the result of many factors, including failure of transport owners to ensure their drivers get enough sleep. But at the New Plant Station here in Accra, drivers confess that's the situation. They have no place to rest and often sleep in their buses. There's more in Joshua Smith's report.
We don't get enough rest. That's the chorus among drivers here at the New Plant Station. They do long distances lasting hours, but with no places to rest. Many of these drivers end up driving tired. It's 3 p.m. and there are lots of buses lined up here and waiting their turns to convey passengers to their various destinations. In these buses are drivers who do not go home but have little sleep in their vehicles at the terminal.
The problem you face is here for drivers, one, you need to be a better. Said drivers now, baby, I'll bet that. And now, baby, I'll could carry, say, union na yama mono. There be for the past 10 years, Nidia, me who be wa. New plan for Kanake, oh, baby, kitwe be say, I say, office now, no, and yet advisable. Said driver ni about if you can't so bar, so we are VIP for war. Drivers lodger, what you say, aha, more dano. A camera, air conditioning now. New Plant Station for the past 30 years or more station, you won't be sir. And any advisable.
But spokesperson for the New Plant Station denies this. He says there is a place for drivers to rest. We discovered this is a small room that everyone who wants to sleep would squeeze into.
If the driver are making such allegation, it's not true. We have a restroom for them. But the restroom is not big enough to contain all of them. And the reason is that we used to have a big restroom for them. But we are close to the railway, and they're also doing, laying their rails afresh. So we were given a meter away from the ray. So we are affected. Due to that, our restroom have been limited. It's not true that we don't have, we have, but only that it's not that big enough to accommodate all of them.
But for the drivers, these explanations are not enough, adding that some rely on Tiger Nut, Blue Jeans, energy drinks, among others, in order for them to drive for long hours. Since the campaign against fatigue is ongoing, it is believed that enough rest for drivers after long hours of driving can help save lots of lives.